The binding around your wrists is tightening. It isn't rope, it is silk. Expensive, smooth, and deliberate, chosen specifically because it leaves no bruises on the skin. You are kneeling on damp limestone in a chamber that reeks of lamp oil and cold sweat. The floor is slippery, not with water, but with something else, something you refuse to look at. In front of you stand 3 heavy wooden doors. From behind the first door, you hear the sound of weeping. It is soft and rhythmic, like a funeral prayer. Behind the second door, there is nothing, just a silence so thick it feels like it is crushing your lungs. Behind the third door, you hear laughter and the gentle clinking of wine cups. Voices are discussing poetry in Arabic, a language you barely understand. Your name is Catherine. You are 23 years old. 3 months ago, you watched your father bleed to death while holding a contract he believed would save you. It didn't. Now, a man in a spotless white robe is walking down the line of women. He asks questions in languages you know and languages you don't. His voice is calm, almost clinical. He is not choosing slaves. He is cataloging inventory. One of these doors will determine whether you survive the next decade. One of them will make you wish you hadn't. And the worst one, it isn't the one with the screams. By the time this story ends, you will know exactly what lies behind all 3 doors. You will understand why, 12 years from now, Catherine will stand before a sultan and speak words that should have guaranteed her execution. And you will realize something most people never learn about history. The cruelest systems aren't built by monsters. They are built by people who convince themselves they are being efficient. Damascus, 1260 AD. The Crusades are collapsing. But for the women left in the ruins, a nightmare worse than war is beginning. 6 hours before the doors, Catherine's father made a calculation that cost him his life. He was a merchant, a successful one, the kind who understood that survival in Acre, one of the last Crusader strongholds, required deals that crossed enemy lines. He held contracts with Mamluk officials, letters sealed with wax, promises written in ink that guaranteed safe passage for his family. He believed paper could stop steel. He was wrong. When the Mamluk armies breached the gates in the spring of 1260, those contracts dissolved like sugar in water. His carefully negotiated agreements meant nothing to the soldiers flooding the streets. The letters became fuel for the fire. Catherine's father died in his own courtyard, clutching a document with a sultan's seal. Catherine and her mother were torn apart in the chaos. Different hands, different directions. She screamed her mother's name until her voice failed and her throat tasted of blood. She never saw her again. She never learned if her mother survived the first hour, let alone the first week. 3 months later, Catherine stood in that underground chamber with 17 other women pressed against the cold stone. All Christian, all captured during the same campaign that erased Acre from the map. All waiting for a man named Amir Tashimor to decide their fate. Tashimor entered through the center door. He carried no weapon. He wore the simple robe of a steward, but the deference the guard showed him revealed his true power. His title in the Mamluk administration translated roughly to integration specialist. Integration. That word appears in the official records with disturbing frequency. It sounds humane, like helping refugees adjust. Here is what it actually meant. The Mamluks had learned something during their own enslavement that most conquerors never grasp. Human beings are malleable. Given the right combination of time, isolation, and total environmental control, you can systematically erase one identity and construct another in its place. They knew this because it had been done to them. Every sultan, every emir, every commander who shaped the medieval Middle East had started as a slave. Boys taken from the steppes of Central Asia or the mountains of the Caucasus, purchased as children, converted to Islam, and trained in warfare with ruthless precision. By their 20s, these former slaves became elite warriors. By their 30s, they commanded empires. When the Ayyubid dynasty fell in 1250, it was a Mamluk, a former slave, who seized the throne. This created a paradox at the heart of their society. The ruling class consisted entirely of men who had been systematically transformed through bondage. They didn't view this as a tragedy. They viewed it as a proven methodology. If boys could be turned into warriors, then captured populations could be turned into whatever the state needed, and the state needed much. Soldiers, servants, laborers, administrators, and women who could perform functions that free women of equivalent status could not or would not provide. So they built an infrastructure to process thousands of people. 7 major facilities in Damascus alone, standardized procedures, medical exams within 24 hours, classification based on age, origin, and capability. Records tracked every individual. Mortality rates were calculated. Productivity was measured. The Mamluks approached human trafficking with the same systematic logic they applied to military supply lines. Tashimur was just one cog in this vast machine, but his decision would define Catherine's life for the next 12 years. 12 years. Remember that number. Because at the end of those 12 years, Catherine would do something impossible. She would stand in front of Sultan Qalawun during a public audience, a place where harem women were forbidden to speak, and she would say words that should have killed her. Words that no enslaved woman had ever dared to say. Instead, those words set her free. But we are not there yet. We are still in the underground chamber, watching. Tashimur walked past Catherine without a glance, stopping in front of a younger girl, maybe 16, Armenian, terrified. He speaks to her in Arabic. She doesn't understand. He repeats it in Armenian. She goes pale and shakes her head. He nods to a guard. The girl is led to the left door. Door number 1. It opens. Through it, Catherine sees sunlight and a courtyard. Dozens of women sitting in rows, heads bowed, while men examine them like livestock at an auction. The door closes. Tashimur continues down the line. His choices follow a pattern: age, origin, physical health. But there is a hidden criteria he is testing. He asks each woman a question in her native tongue. The question changes, but the test is the same. He is measuring their capacity to be reshaped. The Mamluks understood something modern psychology wouldn't discover for centuries. If you control the environment completely, human identity is far more fragile than we want to believe. Before we open that first door, do me a favor. If this story matters to you, hit the like button and subscribe. It is the only way these forgotten voices get heard. Now, let's see what was behind door 1. Catherine had not been broken, not yet, but the system knew how to break people without leaving a mark, how to erase who they were and build who they needed to be, how to maximize profit while maintaining control. They had refined these techniques over decades. Door 1 opened again and again. Women vanished through it. Catherine watched, waiting for her turn. Then he stopped in front of her. His eyes were empty of emotion, purely calculating. He asked his question in perfect French. "Can you read?" Catherine hesitated. In that split second, she made a choice that changed everything. She could lie. She could pretend to be illiterate, hoping it would lead to a safer, simpler assignment. But something in Tashamore's eyes told her he already knew. Her father was a merchant. Merchants taught their daughters to read. Contracts. Lying would only prove she lacked judgment. "Yes," she said. "French and Latin. Some Arabic." Tashamore didn't smile. He gestured to a guard who handed him a wax tablet. On it was a sentence in Arabic script. "Read this." Catherine studied the formal, classical script, a line of religious poetry. She read it aloud, her pronunciation rough but clear. Tashamore took the tablet back, made a mark on his scroll, and moved on. Catherine didn't know it, but she had just been selected for door 3, not the courtyard of domestic servants behind door 1, not the immediate sale in the slave markets behind door 2. Door 3 led to the administrative household placement. It sounds almost professional, like a clerical job. And it was. But it was also something else. Women in this track served 2 purposes. By day, they were intellectual labor, managing correspondence, keeping accounts, handling negotiations for the household. By night, twice a week, they provided a different service. One the system calculated with the same cold precision as tax collection. 3 days later, Catherine was taken through door 3. She entered a smaller room with sound-muffling carpets. 5 other women were there. All educated, all multilingual, all young enough to be molded. An older woman entered. Her name was Sophia. 20 years ago, she had stood where Catherine stood. Now, she was the trainer. What Sophia taught over the next 60 days was the systematic destruction of the self. Week 1, language, not learning Arabic, but unlearning Christian speech. No more, Christ preserve us, only God willing. Sophia corrected every slip until their old faith vanished from their tongues. Week 2, body memory. Christian women walked and stood differently than Muslim women. The difference was subtle, but fatal if noticed. They practiced posture for hours until their bodies forgot their old habits. Week 3, household management. Not cleaning, but administration. Catherine learned the specific formats of Mamluk bureaucracy. Week 4, the hard lessons. Sophia explained the sexual obligations with zero emotion. Resistance is waste, she said. The household has invested in you. Damaged investments are discarded. She described the lower markets, where damaged women were sent to be worked to death in 2 years. The message was clear: submit or die. By week 8, Catherine barely recognized the woman in the mirror. She moved, spoke, and thought like a Mamluk administrator. She had internalized the new identity. Week 9 brought her placement, the household of Emir Qalawun, a rising commander who would one day be Sultan. Catherine was sold to him for 600 dirhams, a high price for a high-value asset. Sophia left immediately. Catherine realized then that Sophia felt nothing. The system had hollowed her out years ago. In Qalawun's household, Catherine worked under Zara, the head wife. Her job was correspondence management. She wrote letters, managed secrets, and handled political networking. It was boring, and boring was safe. This lasted until Qalawun's son turned 18. The system required young men to learn household management, a euphemism for sexual dominance. Catherine was selected. Zara explained it as an honor. Resistance meant the lower markets. For the next 3 years, Catherine endured. She developed the ability to dissociate, to leave her body while her mind thought of letter drafting and grammar. The Mamluks encouraged this. A woman who could mentally detach was a durable asset. Catherine survived month by month. She marked time by events, not days. When Qalawun became Sultan, when his son married, when she was assigned to train a new Armenian captive, that was the breaking point. Looking into the terrified eyes of the new girl, Catherine saw herself. She realized she had become Sophia. She was now the cog in the machine that destroyed others. She couldn't do it. On October 3rd, 1284, Catherine did the unthinkable. During a public audience where petitions were heard, she stood up. The room went silent. Harem women never spoke here. Catherine spoke in perfect Arabic. "I petition for manumission," she said. "I have served this household with distinction for 12 years. I have trained staff. I have performed all functions without complaint. I request transfer to the status of freed servant." Her argument was legally sound. Islamic law allowed for freeing slaves who served faithfully. Catherine had used her administrative knowledge to build a trap. If Qalawun refused, he would be admitting that the Mamluk system of merit and service was a lie. He stared at her, then consulted his judge. The judge nodded. The petition was valid. Qalawun granted it. Catherine was freed that afternoon. She was hired back as a paid scribe. She was free, but she had nowhere to go. Acre was gone. Her family was dead. She remained in the same household, doing the same work. But she was no longer property. She had made a choice. The Armenian girl she refused to train was sent elsewhere, which haunted Catherine, but she had reclaimed her agency. Catherine died in Damascus in 1315 at age 63. She never went home. But she taught other women to read. She survived. Her name exists in a single line of a ledger discovered in 1953. Most women left no trace. But Catherine did. The cruelest systems are not built by monsters. They are built by ordinary people who just do their jobs. Catherine's story reminds us that sometimes the smallest act of defiance, a voice in a silent room, is the only victory that matters.